She limped past them with slow, uneven steps, dust clinging to her torn uniform, blood darkening the edge of her pant leg. The SEAL team leaned against their truck, whispering sharp jokes they didn't think she could hear. They assumed she was weak, injured, barely holding herself together. But the flicker in her eyes, steady, calculating, unbroken, hinted at something they weren't ready to understand. And in a few minutes, they would regret every careless word they'd spoken. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you were watching from. I love knowing who is listening. Her name was Captain Mara Hale, though few on the base recognized her. Months of deep cover work had changed her appearance, leaner, quieter, shadows of exhaustion threading beneath her eyes. But the injury? That wasn't from the mission. That was from saving 2 civilians when a convoy exploded outside Kandahar. She had walked 3 miles with a shattered ankle to get them help, yet she never corrected people when they called her fragile. She had no interest in proving anything through words. She only ever proved things through action. As Mara passed the SEALs, their murmurs sharpened. One of them, a tall, broad-shouldered operator named Riker, tilted his head toward her with a smirk. "Look at that limp," he whispered. "Some people just aren't built for the field." Another chuckled. "What, she can't walk straight? What's she doing on a forward base? Should have stayed in the med tent." Mara heard every word, but she kept walking. The wind pushed dust across the yard, swirling around her boots. Her breath came shallow and tight, not from pain, but from the sting of knowing how fast people judged what they didn't understand. She reached the far wall, bracing her hand against the cool concrete. For a moment, she closed her eyes. Then Captain Ramirez stepped beside her. "You okay?" Ramirez asked softly. Mara nodded, though her ankle throbbed. "Pain's nothing new." Ramirez hesitated. "They don't know who you are." "I know," she said. "That's fine." But something inside her tightened. A thought she pushed away. Was it truly fine? Or had she grown numb to being underestimated? She had spent years fighting to earn ground others were handed from the start. Still, she refused bitterness. It served no one, least of all herself. Minutes later, the alarm siren shattered the quiet. A convoy had gone dark 2 miles from the base, an ambush suspected. No officers on site. No leadership within immediate reach, except her. The SEAL team scrambled to their gear. Riker cursed under his breath. "We don't have a commander. We can't mobilize blind." A voice rose behind them, calm, clipped unmistakably authoritative. "You do now," they turned. Mara stood there, not hiding her limp, not masking her pain. But the look in her eyes had changed. Something in her posture shifted. Shoulders straight, presence commanding, the kind of stance worn only by those who've spent years making life-or-death decisions. Riker frowned. "Ma'am, who exactly are you again?" Ramirez answered for her, stepping forward with a touch of satisfaction. "She's the highest-ranking officer on this base right now, Captain Mara Hale. She outranks all of you." Silence spread like a shockwave. A few soldiers lowered their eyes. One swallowed hard. Riker's ears reddened. Mara spoke before the shame could settle too deeply. "We can reflect later. Right now, lives are at stake. Gear up. 5 minutes." Her tone wasn't vengeful. It was steady, focused. The sound of a leader who expected the best from the people she worked beside, even if they had failed her moments ago. They moved. On the ride out, Mara studied the map glowing on the tablet, ignoring the throbbing pulse in her leg. Every bump on the dirt road sent fire through her ankle, but she didn't flinch. The SEALs watched her in a different way now. Not mocking, not dismissive, but curious. Respect softened the edges of their earlier arrogance. When they reached the ambush site, the air was thick with dust, smoke, and distant gunfire. Mara stepped out first. Even limping, she moved with deliberate precision, scanning the terrain. "To shooters on the ridge," she murmured. "One behind that burnt-out vehicle." And a fourth she exhaled slowly. "That shadow near the tree line. He thinks he's hidden." Riker stiffened. "You saw all that?" "Already. Pattern recognition doesn't depend on ankles," she replied. Then she signaled the advance. The SEALs moved like a tide, synchronized, efficient, but now they followed her lead. Her voice carried through the dust, sharp and unwavering, calling positions. Adjusting their angles, predicting the enemy's shifts with uncanny precision. When a grenade arced down from the ridge, she positioned the team before it even hit the ground. And when she saw a trapped soldier bleeding out near the overturned vehicle, she didn't hesitate. She charged toward him, dragging herself across debris despite the agony in her leg. Riker moved to help, but she had already lifted the man halfway. "Get him behind cover," she ordered, breath ragged. By the time the final gunman fell silent, the SEAL team wasn't looking at her injury. They weren't looking at her limp. They were looking at the woman who had led them with clarity, courage, and a kind of quiet brilliance none of them had recognized earlier. Back on base, the men stood in front of her, grime-covered, humbled. Riker spoke first, his voice low. "Ma'am, completely wrong. Completely wrong. We judged you without knowing a thing." He exhaled shakily. "And we're sorry." Mara studied their faces, remorseful, sincere, human. She nodded. "People make mistakes," she said. "What matters is what they choose to learn from them." A stillness settled around them, the kind that rewrites people from the inside. Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back. And as she walked away, the sun dipping low behind her, the dust around her boots seemed less like something that weighed her down, and more like something she had risen through, again and again. In the end, the limp didn't define her, the courage did. If you felt something in this story, let me know in the comments, and subscribe to Whispered Words for more powerful human stories like this one.